I'm Quentin Laughlin, as I was very warmly introduced with great prestige or something. I'm one of the shepherds here at the Belton Church of Christ, and I have to tell you, this is my very first time to preach in my life. So, I don't normally get in front of people and get nervous. Like, I'm okay with getting in front of people. This is a different ball game here when you're going to get up and preach, right? So Darren is out of town. He's with our youth group in Honduras, so keep them in your prayers. But I'll be filling in this week, and Stephen Baldridge will be next week. I will tell you that Darren told me very specifically, though, shoot for mediocre. Mediocre is all we're going for today. So that's the deal. So since I have a captive audience, if y'all were here at the end of December, I gave a little testimony at the end of the year about how my 2024 went. One of the things that I said, though, is that Jennifer and I lost all three of our old dogs within 2.5 months, all three of them, 16, 16, and 8 years old. And I figured I have a captive audience this morning. I might as well introduce you to our newest member at the Laughlin household. This is Frankie. And Frankie, we went the opposite way. So I had a Great Dane that was 145 pounds. Frankie is going to get to maybe 3.5 pounds max. He just hit the 2-pound mark last week, and Frankie is a mess, and it is not fun having a puppy in your house. I will say that. All right, I've broken the ice. I'm probably going to stand behind this podium more than Darren does, but Darren's a professional and I'm not. So, let's start this off with a question. Have you ever been in a lonely crowd? At this point, we would all say we've been in a restaurant or a coffee shop where there might be a place full of people, but nobody's talking or having a conversation together because they're glued to a screen. No talking, heads down, earbuds in, fingers scrolling, a room full of people, but everyone is alone. And listen, I'm not judging here. I have been there. I have done that. I've seen y'all do it too, okay? But it does remind me of something that I read in preparation for this sermon. There was an article written by Derek Thompson, and the article was entitled, "The Antisocial Century." He pointed out that Americans are spending more time alone than ever before. We eat alone, we work alone, we shop online to avoid the stores, we text instead of call. And even when we're in public, like that coffee shop, we still exist in our own little bubbles. Thompson noted that a number of people are dining alone in restaurants. In fact, it's actually jumped 29% up in the last 2 years of people who are dining by themselves in restaurants. So more and more, we're sitting in public surrounded by people, and we're still eating alone. The article leads to, and I would tend to agree with this, is that we are choosing to be alone. Thompson noted that the issue is not loneliness. There's actually a lot of data that shows that the feeling of loneliness peaked in the end of the 20th century and early 21st. But what is noteworthy is that more and more people are spending more time alone. They actually feel less lonely, which means that people are choosing to be alone and isolated and are not responding with loneliness. They are responding with a greater desire to be alone. We aren't just victims of circumstance in this. We're actually opting for isolation little by little. Now think about it. We order food instead of sitting in a restaurant. We binge watch a show instead of grabbing dinner with a friend. We avoid small talk because it feels awkward. Somewhere along the way, we started prioritizing comfort over connection. And now we don't know how to reverse it or even care to. We lock our cars and our houses no matter if we're leaving for 5 minutes or a week. And many of us don't even know the neighbors that physically live next to us at all. The pace of technology has picked up and will continue to get faster going forward. COVID put the gas pedal down hard. And it sped things up significantly because we were forced to be alone, and we have seen the impact of that. Many of us have jobs that we work completely from home without ever having to leave the house. As a real estate agent, I get this all the time. I'm looking to buy a house, but I have to find a fourth bedroom or an office or a formal dining room because I work from home and I need that space to do that. Another thing with technology, pay attention to how different generations communicate. If you're reaching out to someone who is older, they would probably appreciate a phone call or a face-to-face visit if possible. If you're reaching out to somebody who is in the younger generation, a simple text message might be the way that you let them know that you're thinking about them. Regardless of how you do it, the effort to reach out to them is what is important. Imagine a world where everyone feels truly seen, valued, and connected. A place where loneliness is replaced by genuine community and belonging. Sounds like a dream, right? But as followers of Jesus, we're called to make this dream a reality. So this morning, as we looked at practices of our mission here at the Belton Church of Christ, I'd like to focus on this practice. In a world, let's go to the next slide. Yep. In a world that can feel lonely and isolating, following Jesus means welcoming others into our church community. There are two examples of Jesus welcoming someone into his community that I thought of immediately when I found out that I would be preaching on this today. One was Zacchaeus, the tax collector, and number two, the Samaritan woman at the well. So, how are we breaking down barriers? Jesus had this amazing knack for seeing beyond labels and connecting with people on a personal level. Take Zacchaeus, for example. He was a tax collector, which meant everybody hated him. Back then, tax collectors weren't just government workers. They were seen as traitors, sellouts to the Roman Empire, and extorting their own people for profit. He wasn't just a tax collector. He was the chief tax collector, meaning he was at the top of a system that thrived on cheating and betrayal. So, Zacchaeus was wealthy, but alone. No one wanted to invite him over for dinner. No one texted him to hang out. He had money, but he had no real friends. In Luke 19, Zacchaeus is so eager to see Jesus that he climbs up a sycamore tree. Now picture that, a grown man shimmying up a tree just to get a glimpse. And that would have been very disgraceful at that time. Jesus spots him and says, "Hey, Zacchaeus, come down. Let's go to your house." This wasn't just a dinner invite. It was Jesus smashing social norms to reach someone who felt isolated. Then there's the Samaritan woman in John 4. Jews and Samaritans back then got along about as well as cats and dogs. And men didn't chat with women in public. It is the noon hour, and this Samaritan woman has chosen to isolate herself from everyone else who has come much earlier. Why? Because she's tired. She's tired of the whispers, tired of the stares, tired of being the woman everyone talks about and no one talks to. Yet Jesus sees her and strikes up a conversation with her about asking her for a drink. And she's probably shocked at this point, saying, "Wait, you're talking to me?" But Jesus dives right in, offering her living water and addressing her deepest needs. And let's pause there for a second, because he's doing something very radical at that time. This is a Jewish man talking to a Samaritan woman alone. That didn't happen. That broke about every social rule out there. But he doesn't care. He asks her for a drink, which in that culture was deeply personal. It meant, I see you as an equal. There's great power in personal invitation. Both Zacchaeus and the Samaritan woman woke up that morning feeling unseen, unworthy, and that they didn't belong. But Jesus saw them, and he didn't just say, "Hey, I see you." He welcomed them into his life, and he into theirs. Now think about this. Zacchaeus, after his encounter, decided to give away half of his wealth and repay anyone he cheated 4 times over. The Samaritan woman, she becomes the town's biggest news broadcaster, telling everyone about Jesus. All this started with a simple personal invitation. Who are we missing that might be another disciple for Christ because we weren't welcoming? One more thing we got to think about here is, are we engaging in meaningful conversation? Jesus didn't do small talk. He went straight for the heart of the matter. With the Samaritan woman, he talks about her life, not to judge, but to offer her hope and a fresh start. It is a reminder that we should be willing to have deeper conversations, listening more than we speak, and offering empathy and understanding. We need to be willing to be vulnerable ourselves in order to build trust. Most people are very guarded and are unwilling to share their lives in any great depth because they think everybody else has it together and they will be seen as weak or unwise because of the situation that they're in. Can I tell you a little secret? We're all a mess, all of us. And we all have our struggles. So the beauty in sharing our lives together and being vulnerable is that you realize that you are not doing this alone with your burdens. You may also find that someone has gone through something similar and you can get advice from them, or at least, at a very minimum, some understanding of what you're going through. And because you have now shared your needs and concerns to each other, you will truly then know how to pray for each other. There is nothing more welcoming than being vulnerable with somebody. One of my favorite things about being a shepherd here at this church is when we have our members who are struggling come to our staff and elders to be prayed over. And we do this on a regular basis. It is a time of vulnerability in a safe place when very hard things are discussed and prayed about. There is an instant connection amongst us and an overwhelming feeling of God's presence in those moments. Are we creating inclusive spaces? Are we making situations happen to where people feel welcomed? After meeting Jesus, both Zacchaeus and the Samaritan woman felt a sense of belonging and purpose. Our communities should aim for the same vibe, a place where everybody feels welcome, no matter their background. This could mean hosting events that celebrate different cultures or simply making sure our gatherings are accessible to all. This would also include when you have a group going out to lunch after church. Look for somebody who needs an invite that might not normally go with you or that you haven't invited before. Small groups are another way to create a space where people are welcome into our church community. Because this church is not just in this building. It's also in our homes and the places that we're at all through the week. At the heart of these stories is love, unconditional and transformative. It's about showing up for others, whether through community service, mentorship, or just being there during tough times. I'll say it again, there are so many in this room that have been through this last year with me and have prayed for me and have reached out to me. And with all the surgeries and health issues that I had this last year, you were there for me. Some of the hardest parts are behind me. Most of the hardest parts are behind me. And I'm getting stronger every day and, going to physical therapy and doing the things I should be. But I will say, I still have cancer. I still have prostate cancer right now. And had a doctor's visit here recently, and it looks like we're going to have to make some decisions sooner than later on that. And so your questions to me of how's it going, your questions to me of when is your next appointment, those aren't invasive to me at all. It tells me that you care and that I'm not alone. That's what it tells me. I grew up in this church my whole life, and I've always loved this family. But this last year changed how I see the importance of being included in this family. The stories of Zacchaeus and the Samaritan woman show us that building a welcoming community isn't about grand gestures. It's about everyday actions fueled by love and compassion. By breaking down barriers, extending personal invitations, engaging in meaningful conversations, creating inclusive spaces, and demonstrating transformative love, we can turn the tide on loneliness and isolation. Let's commit to being a community where that doesn't just talk about love, but lives it out, ensuring everyone we meet feels seen, valued, and connected. After all, as someone once said, preach the gospel at all times. Use words if necessary. In Luke 14, we're going to read this scripture, and this is another parable that Jesus used about a banquet. Hearing this, a man sitting at the table with Jesus exclaimed, "What a blessing it will be to attend a banquet in the kingdom of God." Jesus replied with this story. A man prepared a great feast and sent out many invitations. When the banquet was ready, he sent his servant to tell the guests, "Come, the banquet is ready." But they all began making excuses. One said, "I have just bought a field and must inspect it. Please excuse me." Another said, "I have just bought 5 pairs of oxen, and I want to try them out. Please excuse me." Another said, "I just got married, so I can't come." The servant returned and told his master what they had said. His master was furious and said, "Go quickly into the streets and alleys of the town and invite the poor, the crippled, the blind, and the lame." After this, the servant had done this, he reported, "There is still more room." So his master said, "Go out into the country lanes and behind the hedges and urge anyone you find to come, so the house will be full. For none of those I first invited will get even the smallest taste of my banquet." When I read this parable, it struck me. These people who were invited in the third round of invitations must have been extremely lonely and isolated. I mean, in the first round, Jesus, the servant, invited the religious leaders to God's banquet, and they declined. In the second round, the poor, the crippled, the blind, and the lame were invited, and they were found in the streets and the alleys. And yet this third group had still been missed. We're in the third group. We're the Gentiles. We got the invite as well. And that includes all of us. And God says there's still more room at his banquet. I want a full house. All are invited. So Jesus finds the most isolated and invites them as well. People like the woman at the well. So, let's make this practical. How do we invite more of God's children to the banquet this week? Who are those that have been missed and need the invitation? First, make the first move. Jesus didn't wait for Zacchaeus to come to him. He didn't wait for the Samaritan woman to introduce herself. He started the conversation. So, who in your life needs that first move? Maybe it's a family member you haven't checked in on for a while. Maybe it's a friend who's been distant. Maybe it's a coworker who eats lunch alone every day. Take the initiative, send the text, make the call, extend the invite. You make the first move. Number 2, eat with people. This is something that Darren preached on last week, and it is so very true. There's a reason Jesus was always having meals with people. Something happens when we sit across the table from each other. I hope those that came to the potluck last weekend had a good time, connected with each other. I sure did. We're going to have a lot more of those opportunities. We're going to create opportunities for us to be at the table together and to be able to connect together. But this week, be intentional about start eating with people more often. Invite a neighbor over. Take your lunch break with someone instead of eating at your desk. If you're already going out to eat, invite somebody to go with you. Number three, I'm preaching to myself on this one. Put your phone down. Jennifer, I'm sure she's nodding her head right now. Put your phone down. Sometimes we miss opportunities for connection because we're too busy scrolling. This week, try putting your phone away when you're with others. Make eye contact, ask questions, listen, and engage in conversation. Jesus shows us that relationships start when we welcome others and are willing to be welcomed. Because when we really see each other, we bring his love into this world. Welcoming others doesn't have to be grand, but it does have to be purposeful. Be intentional about setting a time to get together with someone and follow through. Too many times we say, let's get together, and it never happens because we're too busy. Make it a priority. Make it happen. Again, Jesus didn't wait for an invitation. He invited himself. He was like, hey, I'm coming over. Put the coffee on. This might seem rude or intrusive today. We don't normally invite ourselves. But Jesus was not about formality. He was about connection. In a world where people are choosing isolation, the church should be the place where no one is unseen. I have one last thought. This may be crazy, but I don't think it is. But it would be completely crazy to think that all of this may not even be for them as much as it's for you. Take the initiative and get out of your comfort zones, because there's a very high chance you will be blessed when you do.